July 20, 1969. I mean, that date, right?
Yes.
It's just etched in everyone's mind. The whole world watching those grainy black and white pictures. Neil Armstrong coming down the ladder. And then
Yes.
those words. That's one small step for man. One giant leap for mankind. Humanity on the moon. Our moon. A huge moment. But what if it wasn't our moon? What if there's this persistent idea, this theory that Armstrong, Aldrin, Collins, they didn't land where we think they did. They actually touched down on a different moon. One that, isn't on the official maps today, but shows up in old charts, maybe some weird mission logs. Okay, let's be really clear up front. This isn't the fake landing thing. No one's saying it was a movie set. The mission was real. They definitely went to space. The twist here is, were they navigated, maybe deliberately, maybe by accident, to the wrong place? And look, this isn't just pulled out of thin air. The theory pieces together some, intriguing bits. Astronomical oddities, supposedly leaked NASA documents, forgotten transcripts, even historical reports about Earth having more than one moon, like temporary ones. It really makes you question the story we've known for, over 50 years now. So our mission today, let's dive into this. Did that first giant leap happen on a different world? Has the real story been buried all this time? Okay, landing on the wrong moon. I mean, it sounds like something straight out of science fiction. We know the moon, right?
Yeah.
Up there every night. So to even get into this theory, we have to start with a pretty fundamental question. Could there actually be another moon, or have been?
That's exactly the place to start. Because historically, the idea of Earth having only one moon wasn't always the absolute certainty it is today. If you look back centuries ago, astronomers, especially around the 17th, 18th centuries, they actually documented sightings of what they called second moons, or sometimes companion moons. These were described as, small, faint, and crucially temporary, not permanent fixtures like the moon. Yeah, there's specific examples, like 1846, a French astronomer, Frédéric Petit. He reported observing a small moon whipping around Earth in less than 3 hours. These weren't just like folk tales. These phantom moon sightings actually got published in scientific journals back then.
So they were treated as actual possibility, or for a time anyway. What changed? Why did we stop talking about them?
Exactly. They were taken seriously, at least for a while. But over time, the consensus shifted. They got written off mostly as observational errors, maybe atmospheric tricks of light, that sort of thing. But here's what's kind of interesting for this theory. The way mentions of these extra moons just faded away from mainstream astronomy textbooks, especially around the mid-20th century. And that timing lines up neatly with, the Cold War, intense secrecy, the space race heating up. The theory suggests this is maybe where a potential cover-up started. You create an environment where maybe a mission could be sent somewhere else, somewhere not on the public maps.
Right, it sets a stage, doesn't it? It makes a misdirection seem, maybe slightly more plausible if the possibility of other objects is already being downplayed. Okay, so let's just quickly ground ourselves in the official story we all learned. Apollo 11 launched July 16, 69. Armstrong, Aldrin, Collins, about 76 hours to get there. Landing July 20th, Sea of Tranquility. They stayed about 21 hours, grabbed rocks, planted the flag, came home safe. That's the history book version.
That's the one. The narrative everyone knows. But it's precisely within that accepted story that some people find these subtle inconsistencies. Anomalies that fuel the wrong destination idea. Again, just to reiterate, not about it being faked, but about the location being misidentified. Okay, first point. Amateur astronomers back in '69. There was apparently a small group who tracked the spacecraft, and they claimed Apollo 11's path, its trajectory, didn't quite seem to line up with a trip to our moon. NASA's official explanation. Perfectly reasonable on the surface. Limitations of amateur gear, atmospheric distortion, stuff like that.
Which sounds fair enough, scientifically.
Unless
you're already looking for discrepancies, right? It shows how these little seeds of doubt, even from amateur observations, can grow.
Exactly. And then you get to the photographs. This is a big one for the theorists. Some photographic analysis experts looking closely have pointed out what they see as subtle differences between the Apollo 11 surface photos and pictures from later missions like Apollo 12 or 15.
Differences? How? Like what?
Well, things like the way light reflected off the rocks. Some claim the mineral reflectivity looks slightly different in the Apollo 11 shots, and the lunar dust, the regolith. It supposedly looks finer, almost more powdery in the Apollo 11 images compared to later missions.
Okay.
But maybe the most visually striking claim is about the backgrounds. The argument is that the Apollo 11 photos lack easily identifiable lunar landmarks. Mountains or large craters you could definitively match to the known moon map. NASA's explanation makes sense. The first landing, astronauts didn't wander far, and the Sea of Tranquility is known for being relatively flat and featureless.
Right. Limited EVA time.
But the skeptics push back. They say, look, not one single wide shot, not one horizon picture gives you that slam dunk proof. Yes, this is definitely the Sea of Tranquility and nowhere else.
So the trajectory doubts, the photo analysis, it definitely makes you pause. But okay, let's follow this logic. If it wasn't our moon, what was it? How could they even mistake it? That seems like the biggest hurdle.
And that brings us to the astronomical side of things. This is probably the strongest pillar supporting the wrong moon theory in the eyes of its proponents. Because modern astronomy does now accept something that sounds kind of similar to those old phantom moons. We know Earth has temporary mini-moons.
Right, I've heard about those little asteroids caught by our gravity for a bit.
Exactly. Small asteroids, sometimes just a few meters across, they get briefly captured into Earth orbit, hang around for maybe months, maybe a year, then escape again. Like 2006 RH-120. That one orbited us for about 9 months. But here's the thing. This discovery was often presented as like a totally new phenomenon. Yet, those historical records suggest astronomers might have been seeing similar things centuries ago. Maybe not that small, but temporary companions.
Okay, so mini-moons are real. How does that connect to Apollo 11 landing somewhere else?
Well, the theory takes a leap. Some researchers propose that back in 1969, maybe Earth didn't just have tiny mini-moons, but a larger one. A substantial co-orbital companion, perhaps several kilometers wide, something following a really unusual, maybe unstable path. It's even been given a hypothetical name by some writers in this field, Lilith.
Lilith, okay.
The idea is this Lilith could have been harder to spot, maybe masked by the main moon, or its orbit was just weird, and maybe, just maybe, it was an easier target gravitationally, or even a more tempting one for some reason. So the theory goes, Apollo 11 was guided towards this object, Lilith, instead of our main moon.
Ow, an accident.
Two main possibilities offered by the theory. One, a really complex navigational error. Maybe unforeseen gravitational effects, perturbations from this other body subtly pulled them off course. Or, the more conspiratorial angle, it was deliberate. A secret redirection.
A hidden neighbor, almost. Wow. Knowing that mini-moons are real does make the idea of a larger temporary moon seem, well, less impossible, I suppose. Okay, so we have the astronomical theory, the photo questions. What about the astronauts themselves, the human element? Any whispers from the crew or mission control?
That's where it gets into alleged lost transmissions. You know, those moments during the broadcast where the live feed suddenly cut out, or the audio seemed to switch over to a private internal NASA channel.
Yeah, I remember those moments. Always explained as technical glitches, right?
Officially, yes.
Got it.
But one very persistent claim centers around a former NASA contractor named Otto Binder. He alleged that an anonymous source, someone on the ground crew, leaked a transcript fragment. And in this alleged transcript, Armstrong supposedly described seeing something unexpected, large objects watching them from the rim of a nearby crater. The famous quote attributed to this alleged leak is something like, "They're here, they're parked on the edge of the crater, watching us."
Whoa, okay, that's a big claim. Has NASA ever confirmed anything like that?
Absolutely not. NASA has consistently denied the existence or authenticity of any such transcript. If it were real, though, objects could mean anything, couldn't it? Alien ships, sure, but maybe just unusual geological formations on a different moon.
Or installations, if you follow that thread.
Right. And there are other, maybe less dramatic whistleblower claims too. Things about the Apollo guidance computers having brief hiccups, losing orientation during the final landing approach, needing manual overrides. Now, these computer issues are actually documented in the official mission logs.
Oh, really?
Yes, but NASA's explanation is quite specific. The lunar module's computer was simply overloaded with tasks during that critical phase. It wasn't, according to NASA, an indication they were navigating towards the wrong target.
Okay, so if we entertain this idea they landed somewhere else, based on these alleged leaks, these theories, what was this wrong moon supposedly like?
Synthesizing the descriptions from these various sources, the alleged documents, the whistleblower accounts paints a picture quite distinct from our moon. It was supposedly smaller and had lower gravity.
Lower gravity.
Yeah, and proponents use this to argue why the Apollo 11 astronauts seemed to bounce around, maybe with a bit more ease than crews on later missions. So that's highly debatable, of course.
Sure. What else?
It's described as having a paler surface color, fewer large impact craters compared to our moon. And then there's the really far out stuff, claims of unusual structures, things partially buried under the regolith that's the moon dust and soil. Structures that NASA supposedly photographed but naturally never released to the public.
And that leads where?
Straight into the most radical sub-theory, that this wrong moon, this Lilith, wasn't natural at all. that it was some kind of artificial object, an ancient alien station maybe disguised to look like a small moon. In that version of the story, Apollo 11 wasn't just exploration, it was potentially first contact.
An alien space station disguised as a moon that we landed on by mistake or design.
That's
Or
right.
stretching things, isn't it? But okay, let's just stick with the core idea for a second. Landing on a different, maybe natural secret moon, if that happened, why hide it? That's the massive question. Why the cover-up?
And there are several potential motives floated by the theorists. The most straightforward one is probably Cold War politics. Think about it. 1969, peak space race. If the US admitted they'd messed up navigation that badly or landed somewhere unknown, or worse, found something extraordinary they couldn't explain or control.
The Soviets would have had a field day. Credibility gone.
Exactly. It would have been a massive political embarrassment, potentially undermining America's image of technological superiority. Then there's resource secrecy. What if this other moon had, say, unique, incredibly valuable minerals? Or, going further, actual alien technology? Revealing its existence could trigger a global scramble, a potentially dangerous free-for-all. Secrecy might seem pragmatic.
Okay, that makes a kind of cynical sense. What else?
Public stability. How would the world have reacted in 1969 to news of another moon? Especially one maybe housing alien observers, if you believe the Binder League. There was concern perhaps about mass panic, social upheaval. Maybe the thinking was, humanity just wasn't ready for that revelation. Keep things simple. One moon, first steps, victory.
The don't scare the horses approach.
Sort of. And finally, you get the really fringe idea. Alien agreements. This suggests the landing did involve contact with non-humans, who basically demanded secrecy. Maybe in exchange for tech, maybe just as a condition for letting the astronauts leave peacefully. That's deep into speculative territory, obviously.
Definitely. So multiple potential reasons why. How could they actually do it, though? How would you maintain a secret that huge, involving so many people?
The theory suggests a multi-layered approach to the cover-up. One alleged mechanism is image alteration, carefully airbrushing or cropping the official Apollo photos, removing any background details, any stars, any horizon features that didn't perfectly match the known lunar landscape or that hinted at something anomalous.
Tampering with the evidence, essentially.
That's the claim. Another big one is data suppression. Specifically, the original telemetry tapes from Apollo 11. That's the raw data streamed back from the spacecraft. Position, speed, system status. Now, here's a fact. NASA has acknowledged that many of the original Apollo 11 telemetry tapes were lost or erased years ago, reused to save money.
Lost. That sounds incredibly convenient for anyone wanting to hide something.
It does feed the narrative, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whether it was accidental, mundane mismanagement, or deliberate suppression, those original raw tapes are largely gone. Then there's the longer-term idea of astronomical censorship. Gradually, subtly, removing those historical references to second moons, phantom moons from textbooks and academic discourse, ensuring that by the time of Apollo, the idea wasn't really part of mainstream scientific thought.
Cleaning up the historical record.
And one final, quite clever mechanism proposed is misdirection. The idea here is that maybe promoting other more outlandish hoax theories, like the whole "it was filmed in a Hollywood studio" thing, actually helped the wrong moon secret. Because the studio hoax is easier to debunk. It becomes the main focus of skepticism. It draws attention away from the much weirder, potentially more complex, and harder to disprove possibility that they went somewhere real, just not the place we were told. It acts like a smokescreen.
Wow, okay. So we've journeyed from a celebrated historical moment to, well, a pretty complex web of alternative theories, alleged cover-ups, phantom moons. Just to bring it back, the core of this wrong moon theory isn't saying humans didn't go to space, it's questioning the where, questioning if we really know the location of that first footprint.
Precisely. It reframes the achievement, doesn't it? And you're left with these lingering, tantalizing pieces, those old historical sightings of multiple moons, the alleged photographic inconsistencies, the genuinely admitted lost telemetry data, the unconfirmed stories of strange transmissions, and crucially, the modern scientific acceptance of temporary mini-moons. Earth does capture other objects.
It makes you look at things differently, like that digitally restored footage NASA put out for the 50th anniversary in 2019.
Right. Was that just about preserving history with better tech? Or was it, as some theorists wonder, a way to present a definitive, cleaned-up version, maybe smoothing over visual quirks from the originals? And today, Astronomers talk quite openly about Earth capturing and losing small moons. It happens. It's part of our dynamic solar system.
So the final thought really is, could one of those objects, maybe not so many, have been orbiting Earth back in 1969? Could that have been the real destination for Apollo 11? And if it was, where is it now? Did it drift away? Is it still out there? Did we really land on the moon? Or did humanity take its first giant leap onto the wrong one?